What?
Good evening and welcome to the Town of Auburn Planning Board meeting of Tuesday, February 25th, now called to order at 7 p.m. The meeting's being recorded and broadcast live by local access programming. Is anyone in the audience recording tonight's meeting? Hearing none, please rise for the salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to
the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A&R Central One Federal Credit Union, Southbridge Street.
I want to recall, you trusted me to send this back to the applicant to designate where the new building's going, which is outlined right here, the foundation. So I put it up on the screen. They are basically combining these three parcels, and these two parcels, and even that one there. So there's an ATM here right now, and this is where the new building is going on this lot. We're just kind of cleaning up the parcels.
Okay.
The setback is good. On the sideline here, it's a minimum 10 feet. It looks like it's a bit over 12 feet, so it's not clean.
No concerns with it?
No.
Nick, any questions?
None.
Ron?
None.
John?
Nope.
Okay. Motion?
Yep.
Motion to approve the A&R?
I'll make a motion to approve the A&R.
Second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Slow down. Edidania, 11 Southwood Street Court. You have to sign that. Yeah. And that's just squaring off the parcels, correct?
Yes, this one, currently this parcel A is part of lot 2. Lot 1 is looking to buy parcel A, so it has a bigger backyard. There were no concerns myself or with building commissioner. Just land transfer. Check the irregularity factor, and it was fine.
You're just gonna add 8 to 1.
Yeah.
So no concerns?
No.
Both lots are still over 10,000.
Nick, any?
None.
Tom?
Nope.
Motion to approve the A&R?
I'll make a motion to approve the A&R.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. I know. I was trying to be really careful about that.
It's my lot.
My life.
I don't think we're right on that anyways.
It actually did. Can I see that pen for just a second, Ron?
Yep.
Thank you. There you go. What was the condition? I'll say plan approval.
Schedule public hearing with planning board prior to demolition.
That will be part of it as well.
Yeah, now the commissioner will have to all be part of the demolition.
So that's the demolition. Yeah. Okay.
There's that's why we're having times, so we can take it out of order if need be. We have to schedule a
Well,
time.
I think maybe we should go with this one then first, and then, because that one's gonna be a long one.
So schedule at 7:05 though, 7:07.
Okay. All right.
About 7 copies there.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Can I get, applicant CGT requesting a special permit and site plan approval is looking for a continuance to the next hearing,
Yes.
which is March 10th. Could I have a motion to continue that hearing to March 10th?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. You all set, Nick?
Yep.
Great. 705 applicant, Auburn Water District, demolition of existing water tank pursuant to a condition of the site plan approval of October 9, 2018, for construction of a water tank at property located at 201 Prospect Street, Auburn, Mass., map 72, parcel 12. Good evening.
Good evening.
Please introduce yourselves.
My name is Ken Smith. I'm the water superintendent for the Auburn Water District. This is John Gregory. He's the district's consulting engineer from Tater and Howard.
Okay, can I have a motion to open the hearing, please?
I'll make a motion to open the hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
We're back from last October or previous October. 18, time flies. As part of that project, we came before the board for replacement of both tanks, and because we knew it was going to happen, and one of the conditions of that approval for the site plan approval for that was to have another meeting with the residents prior to demolition of the second tank. The first tank has been demolished and it's been replaced with a brand new tank. So here we are, we're posturing to put the second tank out to bid for demolition and reconstruction with a new tank. So we just want to come before the board as required by that previous site plan approval.
Was there an MOU or a memorandum of understanding for the demolition of the tank? What were the requirements? Did you put out a request for bid, or?
It will go out to project bid. I'll
Request for
turn it
bid?
over to John.
We're planning on putting it out to bid this spring,
Okay.
with the district's plan to demolish the tank sometime later this summer, once we get past the high water demand time of the summer, maybe sometime in August. There'll be some preliminary work that the low bid contractor will be able to do in addition to manufacturing of the new tank at their facility prior to it being delivered to the site. So just kind of laying out the time frame. We haven't established a firm bid date yet for the project, but we are looking at this spring, hopefully early this spring. And again, demolition would occur somewhere around the middle of August timeframe, I think is what we're looking at this point.
Have you firmed up the bid documents and can you kind of talk a little bit about, I mean, we are here for the public, so they understand the process and that the person who gets the bid will be required to follow to make sure that we don't have a similar situation with the lead paint that happened some time ago, that I know there was an awful lot of concern at the last meeting.
Well, it'll be a very similar process to what we did for the first tank. First tank, we went out to bid, we had an apparent low bidder, awarded the contract, and then went in, demolished the tank and built the new tank. This was all under contract documents that were procured by the district and that were developed by Pitt and Howard under a professional engineer stamp. Same process will happen. The only slight difference with this project is that the second tank, the replacement of the 2 million gallon tank, is under Mass DEP Drinking Water SRF loan funding. And so there are certain contingencies, certain language in the specifications that we need in order to fulfill the requirements of that loan. And they will have partial oversight during the project as well. We'll have to be working with them directly.
Is there still lead paint concerns with this tank? I know when they sandblasted it before, clearly it didn't get all of the lead paint off, correct?
That was on the tank that's already been
That
demolished
one
and
is already
gone.
demolished.
This-
What about this one?
This tank was built in 1967. In tanks of that era, they did use primers and paints that did contain lead. And in
Anything up to 78. generally.
78, and then it was subsequently just color coated, outside coated. It's never been really de-leaded. This tank has been that way. The coating stayed on. In the 90s, we applied just a new color coat to freshen it up on the outside. There was no removal of any paint at that time.
It
So
was simply encapsulated with a new coat of paint.
Essentially,
Yeah,
yeah.
just-
It's a moisture cured urethane that's currently on the exterior, but the coatings from the original, I guess we'll say the original construction of the tank are underneath that.
Mr. Brooks?
So by what process will you demolish it? You're not gonna sandblast all of it or encapsulate it and then do it? You're gonna,
Now, what we're looking at doing right now is the roof itself. They will have to remove the coating around about a 6-foot, we'll say about a 6-inch wide strip so that it can be torch cut and the roof can be dropped into the middle of the tank. That'll leave the shell in place. That shell is gonna, prior to shearing or cutting of the tank to demolish it, similar to what we did with the other tank, we're slated to provide what they call a lead paint encapsulant over the top of it, which is basically an elastomeric or somewhat flexible coating that will go over the top of that shell. That way, when it's sheared, any of the potential paint that was delaminated or chipping or what have you will be contained.
so you're not gonna torch cut the shell?
We do not plan on torch
You're gonna
cutting the
cover it
shell.
with cover it over?
Yes.
And then shear it?
yeah.
Correct.
Previously, that's how the first tank was demolished, by shearing, and he had it down in a few hours. He sheared, and he just cut it up into little pieces and folded it up and put it in the back of trailer trucks, and it was gone. And that project also had the contractors have to provide to the consultant a demolition plan. There's air monitoring, ground covers monitoring, all those requirements have to be in place. So on this tank here, due to the lead, we are proposing to use this encapsulant over the tank that will bond everything together to the existing coating.
So there'll be nothing floating out in the air.
The place where they're gonna cut with a torch, the lead paint will be removed down to the steel with a vacuum system. They'll suck everything in. It's a contained unit. They'll just go around where they need to cut with a torch
which is just on the roof.
Yeah, just on the roof to drop the roof within the tank. The shell will act as its own containment.
And is the ground around the tank going to be protected, tarped, and
Yes.
all of that?
Before
Yes.
demolition and after demolition, they have to do soil samples, pre and post, and they lay down ground covers before. They put down like a rubber sheet, and then they put steel plates on top of that.
So you'll test, then cover it, and then test afterwards when the covers
Yeah.
are removed and the
Yep.
project's done.
And the new tank will be much smaller. It'll be the size of the one that's in front. This tank right now is 2 million gallons. The new tank will be about 1 million gallons, the same as the new one that's in front. So
To
it's a
give
smaller
you a
footprint.
perspective, the existing 2 million gallon tank is about 83 feet in diameter. This new tank will be roughly 56 feet. We will also have a third-party observer on site every hour or throughout the duration that the tank demolition contractor is on site, similar to what we had with the demolition of the first tank.
Okay. Nick, did you have any questions?
No.
Because you can't take air samples ahead of time because it's gonna probably show nothing because you're not doing anything, so.
And
No, but with the...
If you're
yeah.
doing the monitoring while it's going on and have,
we have 4 locations, and then the labor that's working there, it's all mostly mechanical with a large excavator. He wears the labor that's on site, who's as close to the action as anybody. He wears one, and unfortunately, the air testing for lead is not a real time. They send them, at the end of the day, they send them FedEx to a lab, and it takes 2 or 3 days to get the results back. There's still no immediate real-time analysis.
Is there a way to tent the entire tank while it's coming down? While they're working on it?
It would be almost impossible because they gotta get in there and cut it and reduce it into small pieces. It's a pretty big structure right now. The feeling is that,
Doesn't make me feel
No.
very, very good that it's 2 or 3 days before you find out if the lead's floating around in the air.
Let me ask you a question. The stripping system, it's air and water, and use a garnet,
Not water.
and use any water.
The heap of vac. It strips it, the heap of vac pulls it out. It's a mechanical
as they're
stripping. Yes, it's all one unit. and
Right,
it
so it's
contains
a
it.
piece that goes, it's like
Yeah,
a
it's just
suction
a-
cup that goes on, you got the suction, the bead blast comes in or whatever you're using, it gets sucked right up. There's no
Into a,
escape.
yeah,
So, and then you're using the big excavator with shears on it,
yeah.
so it's not gonna produce any lead paint.
Especially
Cut it
the
like-
the
like
purpose
cut
of
it
that encapsulant is to contain
Just in case.
any of those areas that have been compromised over the years. And we did have a third-party inspection done on this, on the tank, and for the most part, the coatings are still in pretty good condition. They could last a little bit longer. There are, I think what you estimated, less than 1% of the coatings that are starting to see any sort of real delamination or anything to that extent. And most of that is that overcoat urethane that was done, geez, I guess we could say
Mid-nineties.
30 years ago at this point, 20 years ago at this point. So,
So Ken, have you done recently, prior to doing any of this now, have you done any lead samples at all? Even like right now or recently, in this,
we've done, on the first tank, we did pre and post on that site there, and of course, after the demolition, and they were all within acceptable limits there, tolerances for there. Now, they've done the site work and disturbed some areas around that first tank. Now we're moving further away into the woods for the second tank. That will be done just before the demolition, so we have realistic, good, valid, accurate numbers. Before he disturbs anything, we go up there and do soil samples.
to get the base?
Yep, baseline, yep.
John, anything else?
No, I'm all set. I
Let's
think they
open it
got a
up to
pretty
the
good plan.
public. Sir, could you please stand up and state your name?
Sure, Jim Krillman. My concern on the older tank, 67 I assume is the older tank, the one in the back. On that tank, it goes underground some. It's not sitting on top of the ground.
it is,
goes under.
no, there's none of the tank is on, just the foundation is underground. The
Oh, okay.
floor of the tank is
Yeah.
at grade. I know it looks, it's a bit deceiving, There is roughly a, I think, was it 5 to 6 foot elevation
yeah.
change right there. But yes, that finished floor of that tank is at essentially ground level.
Okay.
It's not buried, just a foundation.
There's nothing underground, just concrete, so.
Anyone else?
I had a couple questions about.
Did you please state your name and address, please?
I'm Liz Gribbins. I live at 7 Sunnyside Road. John, you talked about cutting it and how nothing would be airborne.
Correct.
But how is that? If you're cutting it, you're basically taking some of that top coating off. Really, you are, because you're now exposing the.
You gotta look at it this way, it's like taking a pair of scissors to a piece of paper. Do you see anything flying around from the piece of paper? No.
And to try to avoid
I
that,
would,
that's
I
why
would
we're.
suggest that it's probably a little different than a piece of paper, but.
Well, but the
Yeah,
encapsulant
exactly.
that we're proposing to put on there, that the
Okay.
purpose of that is to.
Better example,
encapsulate anything
excuse
that's
me.
there.
Take
Yes,
a
go
piece of
ahead.
laminated paper, cut it with a pair of scissors. You see anything flying around in the air? No.
So
Okay.
what you're saying is that coating that they pour in, it acts like a lamination on paper, and
Correct.
it's not
Are
going
you
to allow
talking
any of
about
that?
during the
Correct.
shearing process?
Yes.
Or the one where they cut the top?
When they're shearing it, because now you're cutting, it seems like that layer is now kind of exposed, right? Because
No, it's
of where you
encapsulated.
cut it.
The whole, they're essentially repainting the tank with an encapsulant to hold everything in place. So even if the machine bumps up against it, you're not gonna get stuff flying everywhere. Then they just take a giant pair of scissors, they cut metal, and they're gonna cut it up in little pieces and put it in a truck like the last one, you're done. Nothing goes flying in the air. And the system they're using the bead blast with, I've used it on bigger projects than that, there is no dust.
And even,
nothing.
even that process of putting it into the truck
They,
is not a,
they have ground cover, and every day the laborer is there with a vacuum cleaner. If he sees a paint chip, he vacuums it up as it's doing it, and at the end of the day, he takes all the paint chips and they go in a barrel and they get sealed and they get sent off for a proper disposal.
and if you could indulge me a little bit longer. So what happens if 2 to 3 days the test comes back and it's not acceptable? Then what happens?
I can't, the work would stop immediately as soon
Correct,
as we
yes.
knew that. And it is just, it's, no other way of testing. There's nothing real time made today. Every de-leading, every bridge painting project is exactly the same. If there's anything visible, the third party independent,
Yes.
if there was any visualized thing, he would shut them down right then. But
We're also
It's-
monitoring ambient conditions as well, if there's high winds or something. to
But
that
you're saying
extent.
after the project is over, it's done, now you're testing the ground again. And so my question is, what do you do then if it comes back and it's not
if he
within?
exceeds the pre-construction limits,
Yep,
he would have to remediate what he did. Yeah, it's,
So all of the soil around the tank would have to be remediated.
Right, which means it
Well,
would be
these, yeah.
removed.
yeah.
and how,
Here is
I guess
concern.
my concern is there's houses right there. Does that,
Lead doesn't travel in soil, it stays put.
Okay.
It doesn't run, it isn't leaching, it stays right there.
okay.
It's there.
And then lastly, on the first tank, when you did the tests before and after, I'm assuming that the tests after were not any higher than they were when
That's
you
correct.
when you did it before? Okay, thank you.
It's really worth the contract as well to protect the soil.
Oh, I'm
It's
sure.
very expensive.
You don't wanna make a bigger
Sure,
mess.
sure.
All the way. It's very expensive.
Yes?
Mary Johnson, 198 Prospect Street. When you did the first tank, I was here, and we had asked for we were told that we would get some lead paint chips from the tower. It was stated 1 hour, 55 minutes into the last meeting. I had emailed you and asked for these with an answer from Ken that it was under his, that he felt that this was more for that back tank. It says, "It is our understanding that the additional testing of paint chips was more related to the rear larger tank for underlying primer and paint layers, where it was constructed in the late 60s as indicated in the attached site plan approval issued by the planning board, that they're going to do those lead paint testing." for that back tank. But what I'm hearing from you guys is that that's not gonna be done because now you're saying that was for the first tank. I also asked for the results of that testing, lead testing. I did not get them, but I got the results for the air quality testing, which was fine. And the air quality testing was only done August 27th, 28th, and 29th, so 3 days of air quality testing. The 30th through the 3rd, it said there was no air monitoring. I feel like we're getting a little bit of different information from the last meeting. And I would like to see further lead testing done before we start shearing that top off,
I think
as said in the
I
planning
think the
board.
confusion comes in, they've already done the testing, that's why they know that the tank has lead paint, and that's why they're encapsulating it so it doesn't fly everywhere. That's where the confusion comes in. The testing's already been done on that tank, if I'm not mistaken, Ken.
Yes, yes, and it just, lead is lead, and the presence of lead, there's limits of it, it's there, you treat it the same, no matter what the lead is. It isn't lead-free. If it was lead-free, we would go down another path. There is lead there, and we're doing that accordingly. Just going on my memory, the only time we did active air testing was when this tank was being demolished. Once the tank was done and folded up and shipped off, that was when they ceased doing air monitoring. There was no need to monitor after.
So it was done during those 3 days that she just noted?
I would have to check my records, but
I'm pretty sure that.
it went down pretty quick. And once they cut it up, went in the trucks, and then it was gone on the site.
Yeah, there were some debris still there because we stood by the house and we walked over, and there was some days that you guys did have to spray the dust when it was going to the trucks, which was after the 30th, I believe.
That was probably just the concrete base. There's no lead in the concrete.
Okay.
It was just the concrete. That was a precaution they were doing, and they weren't making much dust at all. So they were crushing up the little bit of concrete that was there, and that went into trucks also. There was not lead work. The steel was all gone by then. So
Okay, so how are we gonna ensure that when this comes down that we're gonna do, that the dust is gonna be contained?
Well, as they said, there's going to be a third-party observer, but also the building inspector and the Board of Health. With the demolition permit, there'll be some monitoring with them as well. Anything else you wanted to add to that, Adam? I know that you...
No, I believe, they'll need to get a demolition permit from the building commissioner. And the Board of Health is the authority for air quality. If there's any concern, they can coordinate any monitoring, work with DEP if necessary. I'm sure Ken will let us know when they'll start their demolition and make sure we're well apprised of the situation.
Mr. Brooks?
Ken, didn't you say there was an agency that was supplying some funding that was also going to monitor it?
DEP.
well,
That's
this
what
is what John referenced. This is the Mass DEP State Revolving
addition to
Fund.
that.
It's not a grant. It's a low-interest loan. Plans and specs have been submitted to them, as well as the local DEP, and they perused and came back with comments and about the whole project and everything else. It's just a loan. I wish it was a grant, but
They come out and inspect.
Yeah.
They do. I do them once a month.
they have very stringent requirements for everything.
There'll be a schedule of progress meetings that we have to have with them. Granted, this isn't a long duration project, but those will likely be at a minimum
Was
once
the
a
last one
month.
that's worth
And that'll
going to?
involve a site visit as well.
And are these documents all publicly available for whoever would like to see them?
The bid
The
documents,
bid documents?
when they go out to bid, yeah, they're probably, what, 90% now, John?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
they're
third
public
party
documents
and-
once they go out to bid, yes.
Okay. Anyone else in the audience have anything they'd like to ask?
Joyce Christensen, Violet, 199 Prospect Street, right next to the tanks. I too reviewed last year's meeting, and before I ask a couple of questions, I'd just like to clear up something. Mr. Reagan, I think I remember
But that would be
you-
Regan, not Reagan.
Reagan, I'm sorry. I think I remember you talking about if a coating were applied, that wasn't a good thing.
I don't think I ever said that.
That's the last meeting.
I don't think I ever said that. Not to my recollection.
There was something about a chemical that you were concerned about.
The only chemical they would possibly use on those tanks is if they remediate it with chemical, where they have to cut it with a torch and they put this adhesive cloth or paper on it and it comes off and it stays contained. That's the only chemical they would ever use up there.
Okay. All
They're not
right.
gonna use that, they're using a really nice sandblasting system.
Self-contained.
Yep, self-contained,
Again, just for the roof portion up there.
just enough to cut that free.
Mr. Curley?
On some of these tanks, do they have like, besides, I'm trying to think of it, asbestosis mixed
No.
in with the lead?
Asbestos.
thing?
No, it's just steel, primer, and color coats.
No liner in the tanks, right?
No, it's just bare steel inside on a concrete floor. Or this one would have a steel floor in it also.
So regarding the third-party observer, which I appreciate the presence of, who would that be? What would their qualifications be? Like an industrial hygienist or?
We have the company's name is Suez that we used in the previous job, and we're at this point slated to use them again. And they have certified tank inspectors that have many, many years of experience dealing not only with tank demo, but also construction, rehabilitation, et cetera. So one of their, we'll call it inspectors, would be on site throughout the duration of it.
On the
So
previous,
all day, every
Yep.
day?
Oh, yes.
whenever is
Where's
demolition of the steel tank. And
Yeah.
on this last tank, we were fortunate to have Dave Merrithew there. And Dave Merrithew has probably 40 years. His father had a business, he inherited the business, and Dave is well-versed in this business. He's not a rookie,
Yeah.
and he's very conservative.
We can't guarantee that he would be there again. It's based on scheduling and at the time, but it would be under his oversight through his office. at minimum. So, and Tata and Howard has worked with Suez, who was previously utility service. We were acquired by them, and prior to that, Merrithew Incorporated. We've worked with them since we came into business in 1992. So, very well
Okay.
trusted.
Good. You mentioned tarps on the ground.
They-
During the demolition of the first water tank, you put like tarps along the fence.
That
Will you
was,
be doing that again as well?
well, that fence is now gone. That fence that ran across the front is gone. They have the temporary fence around the site.
Right.
That was just a little additional measure, different things, but we're blocking our view. I heard from some people, and this woman had her grandchildren, wanted to see the progress, so, no, they put that up, the contractor put that up in his own as just an additional level. Now this tank is another 100 feet back,
Right.
and the new tank is in front of it. So it's contained, our property goes way far back, and your property is to the side there. And the feelings we got so far is that they will just work, the excavator work within the tank, just try to stay within the existing tank footprint on this demolition. So when they did put the tops down, they had big rubber sheets, and they did put steel plates to run the equipment over so it wouldn't tear up the rubber sheets. And that's what he was vacuuming any paint chips off of.
Like Ken alluded to earlier, there will be a demolition plan that the contractor is required to submit, which Ken and I will review, make sure it meets the specifications. We'll probably have our third party also take a look at it prior to, before anything is approved.
And the approved bid will also become public information?
Any of this is public, yeah, public bidding.
Public.
Yep.
Noreen?
Thank you. Doreen
I'm
Goodrich,
just doing this for them.
21 Hill Street. So clearly, we have a room full of concerned residents here. You know, I wasn't able to attend the last meeting, but we ask these questions because we're lay people who don't understand this operation. And so I want to follow up on Mrs. Ribbon's questions. You know, you put a clear coat, you put a coating on a building, and it protects the outside. I think what we're struggling to understand is, once you cut that, you do have an exposed area that could have paint. I mean, we're lay people, but it's not making sense. Can someone explain how you're taking something that you're cutting, which is now exposed because it hasn't been sealed with that paint, how that is not exposed to the air or the residents?
The encapsulation is like, would be synonymous of you urethaning a piece of furniture. It just protects it, and this product that we're proposing to use here could be left permanently. If you had a tank that you wanted just to encapsulate it permanently and leave the tank there, you could do that. This is not a temporary thing. We're using a permanent product, and it just holds everything together like a urethane would. And as John said, when you cut it with a pair of scissors, you just have that cut line. These shears, if anybody watched them do it, he just cut it with just cut up a giant pair of scissors.
If I may,
1 minute, please, Ron.
Ken, I think what Doreen might be concerned with is when you do the shear process, does any of that encapsulation crumble or break away?
Delaminate,
And then
you know,
does the lead that's
Fall
near
into
it
piece.
break off or anything like that? I know it's a
Chips.
shortcut, but
It's a cut. The bonding, it sticks to whatever is there. And if there's any paint chips that become dislodged, that's what the ground cover is there for. And the labor is there with the vacuum to pick up any pieces. And it's inspected at the end of each day. He vacuums them up with a HIPAA vac in a barrel that's contained.
So it'd be a fair statement to say that there is an opportunity for paint chips to fall away when it's being cut with these shears.
At ground level.
That would be a fair statement.
Some minuscule. I don't want to say it's going to be.
I guarantee it.
I guarantee it. There will be none. That would not be a fair statement. There will be some small, but they will be immediately picked up off the ground cover and not left there.
Doreen?
thank you. So back to the tank and the cutting of it. So I'm assuming it's not the width of a piece of paper. So I'm going to go back to your example and use a piece of furniture. So I have a piece of furniture that has lead paint, but I put a urethane on top of it to protect it so that lead paint isn't exposed. But now I need to get rid of that furniture because we're moving and we have a dumpster and we need to cut it in half. I mean, tell me if I'm oversimplifying this. I cut it in half, so now I have the exposed wood tank that has coating, lead paint, structure. Am I wrong?
No, I guess you would be fair, but it's.
You're not wrong, but your cutting system is entirely different than what they're doing.
And that's just what we need reassurance for, because when you're cutting
You'd
a
be taking a
tank
saw.
that is cut.
You'd be taking a
shears
saw and
on-
that would be.
But you're still cutting it. You're still exposing a portion of the tank
But
that
it's
is not
it's
sealed.
different if you take like a power saw to it or a grinder that sends sparks, that sends dust in the air.
It's like cutting
This
wood
doesn't
with a
do that.
utility knife. What comes off of that is.
It's gotta be.
May I-
How did the first tank go?
It's, if I may, it's not, and I don't want to speak for everyone, but having spoken to several people, it's not the concern of the actual cutting, and if I'm wrong, if I'm misspeaking, please correct me. It's not the actual cutting. Now you need to remove this stuff. You're throwing it into a truck. It needs to be removed. Residents are concerned with that whole process about these pieces now that you've just shared, and, you know, assuming that that's safe, you've shared it. Residents are concerned that now you're moving these pieces that you've cut into pieces to take away in these trucks, and we're still not clear on the third-party monitor, who they're working for and what they're monitoring. And residents have legitimate concerns here. They need some kind of reassurance that once you cut this, from the point it's cut and the building is demolished till the time it's brought off-site, because now they're waiting 3 days to get testing, they need some reassurance that what has just been cut up has not exposed the neighborhood.
Correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't the first tank de-leaded? Wasn't that when this all happened? So that one was already de-leaded, that's where they started, and that's when this whole thing happened and all that dust came over, correct?
Right.
So when we, at that last meeting, we were assured that almost all the lead on that was gone. So, yes, you're right, the first one did go well. It was great. There was no issues with the people, it was wonderful. But it was also already deleted because that was what was on Mrs. Byland's house, right? So now so you never deleted the back tank paint, you just cut, the back tank, you covered it. So now we're gonna expose that lead painting. Am I wrong?
The process will be the same, so and I appreciate your concern, the process of cutting it into, they're not gonna be pieces, the process is to take pieces that are probably 10 foot, folds them up, and he lowers them into the truck, so there isn't a bunch of little pieces. He minimizes how much he has to cut, because the more he cuts, the cost him, so he folds them into like basically, I was amazed at like a taco, picks them up and lowers them into the truck, gently puts them in there. He didn't drop them in there. And so if the product, and it's going for proper disposal, and that's the purpose of the ground cover, to contain anything that falls to the ground, and the third party monitors the air if it's too windy. He watches the breezes. If it's too windy, we'd shut them down. But it's not. I can't. If you watched him, there was.
I know, I watched, I have some videos.
Yeah, and
No, I was
true.
almost on it.
That's true.
And I agree, it was incredible the way it was done. But as that big thing that cut them up dropped the pieces, dust did fly. I was assuming it was ground dust or whatever because we weren't worried about the lead on that tank.
When that dust flies, I have a bigger concern.
And we are west of the tanks, which is why our yard got hit so hard the other time. At what point, if the wind is blowing at a certain speed, are you going to shut it down or wait, or
or rain? We'll take all that stuff right off those tops and down it goes, Prospect Street.
And that brings up a question that a neighbor who couldn't make it had. She was concerned about the hay bales that you have along the side, the hay, and feels that it's really not doing the job.
Is there runoff coming off the side?
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of it's coming out the gate.
Yeah.
But it is heading right down Prospect
Okay,
Street,
we'll have
right
them-
into the swamp.
I've been up to
Charlie's yard.
a week or so. I go up there quite often. You see my car there.
Yeah.
And we watch it, and it's pretty stabilized. That truck entrance there, we did not have the greatest season of.
Right, you had a wet season.
A wet
to deal
season,
with.
and we were monitoring that to come out. And some of it comes out with just the vehicle tires, but we've had them sweep it. They went out and swept it several times.
But I've watched it pour down.
Yeah, I wish you'd call me, seriously, 'cause
Okay.
I'm out there. I try to go up there as often, almost daily, a lot of times. I'm up there several times a day.
Okay.
And we would let them know, we'll have them refresh it's not forgotten, we'll have them refresh the hay bales and take a look at that, especially in periods of inactivity up there. It's hard to put the hay bales across the entrance and
Right.
still get vehicles in there. They'll demolish them, so.
But the hay bales aren't meant to stop the water, they're meant to purify the
Yeah,
water.
and so we have,
Basically filter out
Yeah.
any.
Correct, takes out all the soil out of it.
Yes.
well, we have a tire scrubber there. It's quite lengthy, so.
Yes, Liz?
So, I mean, it has to come down. So if, I can't imagine that there have not been other towns who have had the same situation, where they've had to take a water tower down that has lead paint on it. Would you agree? So are we very unique?
Oh, no, we're not unique at all.
So, so have you heard of any towns that have had really bad contamination or contamination that wasn't acceptable levels? And what did they do?
I can't really speak to any personal experience where we've had any major issues. We take all precautions we possibly can to contain this. have third-party on-site observation throughout the duration of the work. If there's any sort of situation, whether it be ambient conditions, weather, anything that could possibly compromise what's going on, I know
That third
both
party
as
has
the
the-
engineer, they can shut them down, we'll be talking to Ken immediately, and the work will be discontinued until the weather clears up, whatever issue at hand is handled, and we're comfortable with that work proceeding.
So you will be monitoring the weather prior, you're not going to start it when there's
Absolutely.
a storm that's coming, or, okay.
We know there's a nor'easter coming,
Yeah.
we can plan ahead.
And I will be up there for the full, till the steel leaves the site. I was up there for the first one, for the whole
So
process.
what happens if something like that does happen? What do you do to the neighbors around it? What would they have to, what would have to happen with them? If you had to stop?
Well, we stop the work, they just, if it's a weather-related thing, you stop till the weather passes. If he's doing something wrong, we shut him down. It's, the tank has to come down. And the longer one belabors it, it's not in the best thing, is to get it down in a very safe manner, get it down, get it trucked away, and then it's gone. If it stays there, it's still a source. We're treating this like anybody else would. We had an option of rehabbing that tank, of removing all the paint and everything else, and we didn't want to do that due to obvious reasons. So now we're picking up the additional expense of demolishing that tank and making it go away forever.
Nick?
Yeah, and I don't want to tell you guys expertise in this area, but would it make sense to hear from that third-party on-site observation folks? It seems like with their experience, their 40 years in observing these demolitions, that sort of thing, it would benefit the residents, myself, and maybe folks as well. Because some of these questions seem
Yeah.
really,
beyond our
really
scope.
involved,
Yeah.
and honestly, I think it's outside of my scope for one. But I think that it would probably benefit and make you feel a little more comfortable with them.
And what's the feasibility of tenting the entire site while the work is going on?
You can't tent it.
You can't tent
There's
it.
just no room to work to,
You can't get a machine in.
yes. You have to keep in mind that there has to be a large machine that's demolishing this tank. There also has to be access for trucks to be able to get in, haul this material off-site. I mean, you'd have,
The structure
yeah,
is
it would-
50 feet high and bigger than most houses.
that too, Ron, good point.
Yeah.
My only question is whoever gets the job, the contractor gets the job, when he submits his demolition plan, does that have to be stamped by a licensed Mass PE or an LSP?
I believe we have that requirement. I will double check that in our specs though, but that should be something that we can make a requirement. Yeah.
And is there an
I
LSP
believe he
on,
did for tank
Casella.
one, yeah. I
Yeah.
believe he did.
is there an LSP on your staff to,
We have a sub-consultant that's an LSP.
Either one.
If we had to bring them in, we would. It's not something we would normally do, but we do have access to that if it was.
And John,
if it
can you
was needed.
explain what LSP and,
a licensed site professional?
Thank
They're
you.
very into any kind of contaminants, ground contaminants, air contaminants. I mean, there's a company I'm working with right now out in Springfield. They're the ones that do the work, and they're unbelievably stringent on what they have to do. I mean,
Right, and then most of the
We
time,
were
they're
digging-
there after the fact.
we were digging ground that was
Yeah.
contaminated, and there was a kid there all day long with an air monitor. That was real time, because it wasn't what we were looking for, but all day long. And then soil samples are taken, they're sent out, much like it's gonna be done here. They're gonna take soil samples, send them out, get all your levels. And probably not gonna just test for lead, they're gonna test for a whole range of things that'll show up on that. And that'll be, if that's within the allowable, then when they cover it, they have to meet that. They can't exceed that at all. Or they gotta come in and remediate the whole site. And that's very expensive.
and I think we have to have a certain amount of understanding that we've learned lessons, what we've done badly in the past.
And that's why we're not
That's why we-
sandblasting.
And the threat that lead poses. and that it's treated accordingly.
Their concerns are not
Yeah,
unfounded, I
not
can
at all,
understand them.
not at all, absolutely. Yep. So going forward, would it be, you think it would be beneficial? Someone, yes?
Can you fill us in on the status of the front tank that you guys finished? Is it online?
Could you please tell us your name
Oh, I'm sorry,
and-
Nancy Becerra.
and your address?
215 Prospect Street.
Thank you. And what's your
Just-
question?
What's the status on the first tank? Is it online now? Is it up and
Yes, it
running?
is.
Or
It is in
It
service.
has to be.
Right now,
Take
just
down the
to
second one.
clean up the site, we're just waiting for, I know the weather over the last couple of days isn't all that conducive, but we're waiting for the spring to
I just
do any
didn't know
sort
if
of
you had put it
cleanup.
online yet.
Yeah.
Also,
So-
we'll be moving, planning to move straight into the next tank as well, so it's basically gonna be secure the site and then get on site, do the next tank, and then do a final cleanup of the whole site.
We weren't quite sure when the second tank would occur after we came with it could have been 3 to 5 years. This SRF funding came in and we were successful in getting that, and that accelerated the tank replacement. So instead of going in and fixing everything right the way it was, and then a week later go back in and tear it all up again to build the second tank, we're in a kind of transitional phase here that we're gonna move from one tank to the other one.
But it was financing that made this 2 different contracts.
Yes, yeah, because we weren't sure when we could afford it ourselves and as far as borrowing money.
Did you
What's the
have
cost
something?
for a tank like that?
We were just talking about that. And where are we up to, 1.4?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking demolition, the new tank, site work, and all that, somewhere in the range of probably 1.6 to 1.8 million.
So it's a significant investment.
Yeah.
What's the new tank gonna be made of?
It's
Same
the
as
same,
the other glass fused to steel.
it's bolt together,
Yeah.
it's like porcelain coated steel, inside and out, so it'll never have to be painted. That's the beauty of
Good
the new
news.
tanks.
Good news.
Yep.
Did you have something else, Mrs. Violent?
Yeah, I appreciate that you're going to take soil samples. Is it possible to extend your sampling? Mrs. Bescari's here and I'm here, who both abut the property. Just lessons learned from the last time where we had to have soil removed and testing every couple of feet to kind of make sure that doesn't happen. Even if we pay personally or whatever, however we could work it out. Just to be completely reassured or,
It's just out of private property.
Yeah, we'd have to get a
Parking and that.
release to enter or have consultants enter your property, a release of liability, just to, you know,
uh-huh.
you know,
I think that's a fair
just,
request.
that's just like anything else, everybody's legal.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
Did you do soil samples for the first tank?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Is there any way that we can get those results, or those results online, as far as before and after?
I-
Online.
I have the air, I knew you sent me the air
I thought I
quality
gave you the
testing.
soil ones, I can send you the soil ones,
Yeah.
but I thought I sent you the.
No, I just have the air
Okay.
quality.
Yes.
I really read too much about this, I shouldn't have online. But how do you determine how deep the soil samples are? I've read that some people say 3 inches, other agencies say a foot. Where are you
It's
at?
gonna depend on the contamination. If you have high contamination in the first, say, 3 inches, they're gonna have to come back and go deeper.
Okay.
It's
That
usually,
makes sense.
they dig them with a potting
It's just
shovel.
a small,
It's
few
less
inches
than
down.
6 inches. And that's, again, for the LSP, recommend the same thing. It's in the topsoil.
And
Lead
that's-
is not something that, like I said before, doesn't move in freely. It stays put. where
Right.
it is.
I know it kind of settles and resides down a little bit. We had to have like the first 3 inches of our topsoil removed in that other incident.
Are there any
Do you
other
have a better lawn?
questions?
What-
Did you get a better lawn the second time around?
Actually, they rolled it out, it was beautiful for a while.
Any other questions from the public? So this really has been informational for them to answer all of your questions and concerns. I think it's important that you pay attention when the bid goes out and the bid documents and all of that, pay attention to that, and if there are some concerns,
Does,
They come back and talk to us, or
Yeah.
do they talk to the building commissioner, Board of Health?
I just have one more question.
Sure.
Does the Auburn Water District have a site, a website?
Yes, it's a little archaic. It's not, it's on my honey to-do list.
I'm
Getting
just
these
thinking that
tanks.
instead of sending people individual emails with test results, they could be posted on your website, that anybody could go look at them at any time?
Well, I have the list Mrs. Violent gave us.
Well, that really, and I like your idea because I only went around to some people.
Well, it's,
I felt bad, the people that I didn't get to, we all know
like the
people.
information. I'm 150 feet away from the back tank, you know, I mean, I'd like a little information.
And I'm about 5 feet away.
And I guess that then also, if something, if, God forbid, the test comes back and the ground is contaminated, how will people know? How will the surrounding people know? Will you, I mean, is there, I guess what I'm trying to look for is some sort of a plan if something goes wrong.
Outreach.
So, you know, what are people expected to do? Will they be expected to leave their homes? Will you be going door to door? Will you be calling people? I mean, I feel like that there needs to be a plan there too, so that's.
I would do this here, if it exceeds, post exceeds, post pre, I have the butters list here of which legally you guys, you know, so many feet all around. You know, it's, I think that's a fair,
You'd reach out to the abutters
yeah, I could just, you know, do that.
with a letter.
Yep.
Okay. And it's on tape.
No, that's the fairest thing that, you know,
But somebody will be able to tell people whether they need to, what they need to do. That it's not just that there was contamination, but I have no idea. Like I'm a layperson. I have no idea if they'd have to leave for a while or if they
Well, there
can't
could be
use the
some
water
coordination
or.
between the building commission, Board of Health, and the water department.
Coordinate something and
Yeah.
let people know.
Could the Board of Health post the results? No.
we've
Just trying to make it as
notified
easy as possible
Yeah,
so
when we-
people get the information they're looking for.
weeks in advance of the actual, when we get a date for the demolition, we've notified the building department, and we've notified Darlene's department of it, so they're aware of it, that,
And you'll notify the abutters as well?
We were notified last time.
Or is
What's
there
that?
gonna be something on your website? How are they gonna know when the demo's gonna start?
They just
How will they know
started it.
when demo's gonna start?
oh, I can send it out again, but when you see the equipment moving up there, and it's pretty obvious when it's gonna start.
We don't get to see the equipment coming up the street.
I'm not gonna belittle you, Ken, but I think that what they're
Yep.
looking for is
Yep.
if you have a signed contract and they have a start date of, say, June 1st, that's the notice to proceed with the contract. And they're not coming till, say, August 15th,
Yeah.
right? They're looking for maybe 2-week notice ahead of time, saying they're gonna start in 2 weeks, weather permitting.
Okay, we can do that. So,
We can shut all
That-
the windows and doors and get the
Right.
sound out of it that way.
Well, and again, that's the kids' bus stop too, and that was never moved, and all the kids stood there every morning waiting for their bus, so that would be good for one of us to go over and say, hey, we're gonna move the bus stop. I think that's important.
That's what I thought,
School
that the
teacher.
group was gonna move them further
Yeah,
down.
they didn't move,
Yeah,
so
so-
nobody was told, so.
And most of the activity didn't start till after the kids were gone. off the
Right,
site.
on the bus,
Yeah.
and I understand that, but
Yeah,
I just
so-
think it's important for them as well.
It's just liable to start before school even goes back in, right?
At this point, we're trying to project out 4 or 5 months, you know,
It's hard.
yeah.
All right, any further comments? Motion to close?
Do you have another comment? Okay.
I'll make a motion to close.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. There is no vote on that, it's just a
Yeah.
close.
Good.
So they'll be notifying the abutters a couple weeks heads up. They'll also be coordinating with Department of Health and the building commissioner. So those are a couple of avenues for you as well if you have any questions. And hopefully they'll get something up on the website and try to keep this as transparent as possible, but, you know, try to stay in the loop, okay?
And Ken, any of the people can call you anytime they
Sure,
want.
anytime.
Or any,
Like I said, during the active demolition, I'm up there. I'm almost up there. I make sure they don't start before the time. 7:30, they've been And when if they do get a little zealous, we get on them, so they've been 7:30 start time, you know.
I don't mind earlier. Do you?
Well, that was what was
Well,
agreed to, so.
yeah.
I think 7:30
And
is
I've-
fine, because
I've
they hang
got-
out right next to my driveway and have coffee, so.
No, I've had them saying, can we start early? I said, no, 7:30 is what was
No.
agreed to, and I held them to
And
that.
there were some nights they stayed till a little bit, but it
I
was
didn't have to
so
pay for
cold,
lights
they
for a
needed
couple
to
of
get
nights.
it done.
Yeah.
because they lit up the
I think the
whole
condition is
house.
7:30 to 6
Yeah.
It
anyway.
was like,
The
gee,
working hours
that's-
in the contract anyway, right?
Yeah,
Well,
7:30.
one of the conditions
Right.
in the
Yeah,
approval was
right,
7:30 to
yeah.
6,
Yeah.
so.
You guys-
And a lot of that time, from tank 1, it was dark, well before 6 o'clock.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
All right, thank you very
Okay,
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Acid Family LLC requesting modification of site plan approval under section 9.4.1 of the Auburn zoning bylaws for parking, landscaping, and site layout reconfiguration on property located at 54 Faith Avenue.
Good evening.
Hello.
Thank you all.
Oh, you're welcome.
Good evening. Stephen Medaus of Myrick O'Connell, here on behalf of Masad Family LLC. As the board is aware, you previously met with Michael Scott from Waterman Design. He's moved on from Waterman, but he's still available on this project. But this is the as-built plan for Faith Ave, which has been executed as a 81X plan, so it's suitable for recording. But what we're looking for this evening, I've been told that everything that was required to be completed on the punch list, if you will, for the new roadway has been completed, and that we're looking for a recommendation from the planning board to the Board of Selectmen that the roadway be accepted and the old roadway be discontinued, so that we can complete the process. And I know the new way's been open for the public for some time, I think over a year. So, that, I wrote down some of the outstanding items that were, you may recall, there was signage with chevrons that was installed, a crosswalk, working with Mr. Coyle.
Yeah, the crosswalk with the blinking light.
Yeah.
And that's
That-
all
that was right
operational,
That
yeah.
was the last thing on the list, was the
It's-
crosswalk.
Yeah.
Like,
It's
this is-
still a terrible location, I gotta tell you. I came
is.
around that corner
Awful.
myself, going 20 miles an hour, and there was a kid running across the street. It's terrible, but, because the sight distance just isn't there. But they did do what we requested that they do, and so,
It's great coming from 4, it's not so good coming from 12,
yeah,
right?
right.
And
Yeah.
the certificate of compliance was issued by the Conservation
Saw
Commission. Yeah, and recorded. So, and as you know, this was like a land use exam, all that's going on this plan. There's easements to be conveyed, and I've been working with town council, and we'll make certain all of that. I'm sure town council will make certain as well, but those easements are executed so that the whole purpose of the special act was to make this kind of a seamless transaction, that there wouldn't be a long delay between the acceptance of the new and the discontinuance of the old, and the conveyance of the easement interest that the town requires for drainage. So all those documents have been drafted and reviewed by town council, Mr. Hennigan. So as I say, I was, because Michael Scott is not available, I was kind of drew the straw to come in, and maybe this was the chip in, I hope, to finally advance the project towards what everybody intended.
Adam?
Yeah, everything seems to be in place. I spoke to Bill Coyle last week, and he said everything looked good. So we're waiting for this to come.
So we need to make the recommendation to the Board of Selectmen to accept the
Correct.
roadway.
Do we make the recommendation, or Bill Coyle make that recommendation, as a highway department?
I think he recommends to us that it's acceptable. We
acceptable.
recommend to the
Then we
Board of
make the
Selectmen
recommendation
that
to the Board of
it's...
Selectmen, yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, absolutely.
This is also been,
Clarification.
sorry, this has also been continued as a public hearing since before I started, as a modification to the site plan approval. So
So we need
I think we
to,
need some kind of site plan approval. It's, the project is, for all intents and purposes, done.
so we'll need a motion for that, and then we'll need a motion to make a recommendation to Yeah.
Unless you can,
I think the completion of the transaction will lead you to site plan approval.
all right,
Yeah. Because then he'll have the land area.
So we'll
I'll hold on that. Hold on the site plan, just recommend Board of Selectmen
Okay.
the approval, or the acceptance of the roadway.
So would someone make a recommendation that we accept the roadway?
I'll make that recommendation.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it is a motion.
Could you also recommend the discontinuance of the,
Has that been accepted, Adam? Have we gotten paid? Have they finally worked that deal with the state?
That's all set with the state, work with town council. At this point, it's just
right?
work with the Board of Selectmen
Okay.
has the authority at this point to
Right.
make the land trade.
Yeah.
All right, so we make a recommendation to discontinue the old Faith Avenue, to the...
As a
to
public
the-
road.
As a public roadway to the select board. So,
I'll make that recommendation,
okay,
as stated.
Second.
okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. It's been a long slog.
It has. I'm trying to think of how many years.
Uh,
I was here with Mr. Coyle, I think.
I've been 6, 7 years, and it's been that whole
6,
time.
7, 8.
Yeah, before
Yeah.
that.
Plus.
Yeah, I wasn't involved in the site plan,
Maybe,
just
maybe approaching 10.
10,
Yeah.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I do think it's a win-win, you know, and we appreciated the town voting to petition for the special legislation, but, you know, you get the new roadway with drainage that didn't exist, and,
It absolutely makes sense.
Well, it'll eliminate water going on to the turnpike entrance on and off.
Yeah, a lot less to plow.
yeah, a lot less to maintain, yeah, so.
Plus, that
and
other road was so dangerous.
he gets the campus, so,
All right.
thank you very much.
All set, thank you.
Thanks.
All right. So, what's next? Site plan, modification, Patrick?
Yeah.
Okay. Site plan modification, Patrick Master, 189 Washington Street. Anybody? Yeah, there he is. So long as we put up the...
We can't shut that door, right?
But they did.
Oh, yeah.
They did it.
You open another one, yeah.
Well, we could open this one now.
I just had my own fences. So my yard is... Sure.
I was under the impression that the
But my yard
the
is
group
not...
was going to do a walkthrough of the property on
Sometimes they
Washington
work,
Street
sometimes they make it
that
round.
go the wetlands last Saturday, and we're going to have a meeting on it today, and that's why I'm here. I'm a butter of the wetlands that's between the Mass Pike and Tuck Farm Road.
That's the rezoning, that's down the road.
That's conservation, I believe.
Conservation Commission.
This is not Conservation Commission.
No, planning board.
Planning board.
Wednesday night. It is, I'm not sure if it's this Wednesday.
It's not this Wednesday, I think
Next Wednesday?
it was last Wednesday, so I don't know if they met last Wednesday or if it's next month.
Do you want to write your information down and I will call you tomorrow and let you know?
Okay.
All right, you're up.
Okay, good evening, Patrick McCarty.
Hi.
How's everybody this evening?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks. So as you know, we're progressing along on the Mazda project, and the Patricks asked us to look into heating the sidewalks along the front of the building and the service drop-off and some of the customer area for, winter months and liability and all that stuff. And in doing that, we took a look at the striping. This is the plan that the board last approved in August. Remember when we went from the multiple tiers to the two-tiered approach? We had 2 handicap spots here at the front of the showroom, and then we had 3 along the row that faces Route 20. And then it looked, so then we'd have to, if we're going to heat this, we'd be heating over there, and some over here, and some over there, and so we looked at kind of reconfiguring to consolidate. So we're requesting a modification to move all of the handicap spaces, oh, I forgot to highlight one, all of the handicap spaces to the front of the showroom.
That
Right there at
makes
the front of the
so
door.
much more sense.
That's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
The second part of the request for the modification is the approved site plan showed the pylon sign here at the top of our driveway, which is where Mazda wanted it, but they've finally realized that it's not very visible from Route 20 way back here.
Yeah.
So what we'd like to do is lose one spot at the front of the building and make an island and drop the sign kind of in the middle of the
That makes
frontage.
sense too.
So we're hoping that you would support these two, what we see as minor modifications.
Nick,
I'm good.
Ron,
Good.
John?
My only question is, by losing the one parking space, do we still have enough parking spaces to meet code?
Oh yeah, we need
Okay.
136, we have 334.
I'm all set.
Some of those are inventory though, right?
Yeah, everything up top is inventory, and along the street, and some of these are inventory, and then the remainder are customer and service, and that's still not enough. They're still looking for another spot in town to store more
Wow.
cars. Same with Volvo Volkswagen. So,
They have both, right? Patrick?
what's that?
Patrick has both Volvo and the...
Yeah, we're moving Volvo, remember we're moving Volvo from Worcester to 519 Washington. We're
Yep.
hoping to get that started in the next 3 to 4 weeks. We started to build the
So
retaining
we're
wall
gonna
out back, and
mile
then
an
everything
hour
froze up
too.
on us.
Silverado mile.
Auto 3 miles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So we need a motion to approve the minor modification,
Yeah, and that it is a minor modification.
and that it is a minor modification.
I'll
To
make
the
a
approved
motion that
plan.
it's a minor modification.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great.
And
Have a
I'll
good
make-
one.
Thank you very much. You too.
And I'll make a motion to
Huh?
accept the
A
minor
motion to accept,
modification.
yes,
I
thank
realized I
you.
didn't give you a stamp
I'll
copy.
second it.
Thanks.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thanks for doing my job, Nick.
No, I can add on the assist. I can add on the assist on that one.
I like the assist, thank you.
Yeah.
You gotta be here more often.
I know.
May I ask a quick question?
Yeah,
Has the project on West Tech Drive come before the board yet?
West Tech, yes.
Yeah.
With the gas
Eversource?
company?
Yeah,
Yeah,
because I saw dig safe marks all down 20 and then up West Tech, and because that's where our sewer's going, so
They're supposed to be starting pretty soon.
I need to get a little coordination going.
yeah,
Yeah.
sounds it.
All right.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
All right, so the table of uses and descriptions, section 3.2 and 3.3.3.
Yes,
Let me see, do I have any? I don't think I had anything
The
on
only changes are the
that.
ones in red, correct? In yellow.
those are the new items.
No items. Yeah, it was more clarification, really, right?
The yellow, the highlighted yellow, we're still tweaking the language and working with the animal control officer.
Additions and clarifications.
Just to make sure she's good with it.
Yeah, I thought those all made sense. Anybody else have any comments on those? 3.2.1 through 3.
Madam, that's the one with the animals, right?
No,
Oh, no, that's the forestry.
that's the article.
Yeah.
The animals are better explained in the chart.
Yep.
Yeah, the chart and the descriptions will be paired up as an article. They complement each other. It's mainly adding a lot of new uses,
Yep.
getting rid of some dated uses.
Dated language and uses, yeah.
They
Yeah.
did
Yep. Yeah, I thought it was good, cleaned it up
a lot.
a lot, yes, yeah.
There's a big effort in-house that zoning bylaw review committee also reviewed all that over a couple of meetings and added their comments.
You really get into the indoor agriculture.
Hmm?
You really get into the indoor agriculture.
Yeah.
I wonder what that's all about.
I wonder what that's all about, yeah. Maybe something to do with marijuana, maybe?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Nope, that one, that's not allowed.
I know, all right. So did anybody have any comments on 3.2 and 3.3? Okay, so then we're on to the dimensional regulation, section 5.4. Where are we? Where is that one? Huh? No. So that's that. There we go. Great.
So we're looking to increase the height.
Increase the height of the building.
In a couple areas to 50 feet.
Yep.
Spoke to the fire chief, he was good with that. He's would actually be good to allow buildings up to 8 stories, which is 100 feet, 85 feet, 200 feet, depending on, I determine it's 10 feet a story or 14.
Just in those areas, right?
I don't have a problem going higher, I don't know how town meeting would feel.
Yeah, highway business, GIINIP.
I think to bring in some of the hopefully mixed use. You're gonna have to go higher than 5 stories.
The mixed use, the biotech, the
Yeah.
pharmaceutical.
Computers.
Right, and you said up to 8 stories.
The fire chief, we go up to 8 stories.
8 stories,
It's
okay.
And what is this section in?
It's the dimensional regulation.
Right here, and it's in the chart.
This one?
Wait, I just had that. Here.
So I'm open to.
Yeah, 'cause they have a ladder truck that can service it now. It's a huge ladder truck.
So 50 feet is how many stories?
Oh,
It used to be 32 height.
5, right?
Wasn't it 32 feet to the
Okay.
eaves before?
30, currently it's 35.
35.
25 to 35
Special
depending on the
permit.
district. 25 only on highway business.
So it's gonna go to 5 stories or 50 feet?
50 feet currently, or I said I'm open to
Currently.
higher.
But
Does
the
that
fire
create?
chief is open to 80, so we could do an
Correct.
8-story. No?
I just feel like we don't have anybody looking for 8 stories in those districts. It's kind of like, why not just happens when we get applicants that are, you know,
But if you leave it open, then, you know, then we won't have to go back and revisit this.
That's general industry, right? GI.
Yeah.
So if somebody was down at Sword Street and ripped down a building and wanted to put up an 8-story building, I wouldn't have a problem with that.
They're gonna abut the neighborhood most likely.
Or
and some-
if
most-
something happens in Irving Square, say somebody buys up the town pizza place.
Right.
And tears it down, puts up an 8-story building, the first 2 floors are commercial, meaning
Yeah.
shops and stuff, and the next 6 floors are apartments. Why would I say no?
I don't
could you just do that with special permit though?
have to be a variance.
Okay.
And variances are,
They're not supposed to be easy to get.
right,
Correct.
Doesn't mean they are, but.
right. And
And
if they have the capability, the fire department has the capability for an 8-story building.
They do, Adam?
fire chief said he'd be okay going up to 8 stories.
No, because we don't want it to keep going up and then we need another ladder truck or something like
And we need
that.
variances.
Well, it would only
and-
be in these districts. It wouldn't be like in
Right.
Drury Square. You could-
But yeah,
Right.
it wouldn't be
But
very
still
square.
need that truck
Yeah,
if it got to
that's
a
fine.
certain height.
That's fine.
Right.
The industrial, mainly the
But a
industrial
5-story
park.
building with 2, you know, and then 3
Yeah,
areas. of-
that's
yeah,
fine, too.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, you're not gonna do it in the,
This area.
you know, the overlay district down in the
Yeah.
town center. You wouldn't want that, I
No.
don't think, but, you know,
Why is the medical office is 5 stories?
yeah, 2 and 5, yeah. Yeah.
So my only concern would be town meeting. Do we start at 50 or do we, but you want, somebody want to amend it on the floor? Nick?
I'm not amending it on the floor to be clear, but no, I think that, I mean,
I'd split the difference and start with 65.
Which wouldn't be too much higher than any other town in the area. I think Shrewsbury.
I think that would be my thing, is I would rather, I don't want to become the prime candidate for 8-story buildings. But there aren't other towns that have that high, that are in the area that are like that.
Around 60
Right.
is the average.
That's why I wouldn't feel comfortable going all the way up to 80, or 100, I mean. So I'm fine with,
I
you
wouldn't go
know.
to 100, but I'd say 65 is a good place.
That was what you said, the fire chief was okay going up to 100.
Stories, yeah.
80.
80.
80 stories?
No,
80 stories.
80
stories.
feet.
He
80
said it's
feet.
up to 8 stories.
Yeah, 80 feet.
So, yeah, I can change it up to 65 and see how that plays out. We have a zoning bylaw review committee meeting next week, so,
Monday, right?
yeah. So we can run it by
All right,
them.
so we recommend, we agree we recommend 65 feet?
Yeah.
Everybody good with that? Okay, recommending 65 feet. Any other comments on the dimensional regulation, section 5.4? I thought everything, all right. Authority and purpose, section 1.
Just kind of housekeeping, just changing some old data land use language and adding some more modern language. This was picked up by the zoning diagnostic that we had done last year by CMRPC.
Mm-hmm.
And it also would correct a numbering error in the sign bylaw.
Okay.
That's a total flip of wordage.
Hmm?
That's a total flip of wordage.
Yeah.
Which is that?
It's just this one right here. What it used to say, to avoid undue concentration.
Oh, yes,
Now
yeah,
we're
yeah, I
encouraging
read that,
housing
yeah,
for-
encourage housing for people of all income levels and abilities, I
Which
guess,
is,
right?
it's actually happening out on Bleecker Street. It's happening.
Yep. All right, the duplicate bylaws, you,
So these bylaws, these were updated in 2015 in the general bylaws. Current bylaws and the zoning bylaws are out of date, older, and duplicates. So basically, it's housekeeping.
okay. And then the animal section, I think this one's gonna take us a little bit over.
That, we finished that draft Thursday morning, so a couple hours before I sent it to you. I met with Animal Control Officer Amy Contos and Darlene Coyle. We spent several days working on it. Caleb Moody also, the building commissioner. But currently, you're not supposed to have more than 4 animals per lot of any kind. Includes domestic animals, cats, dogs, as well as livestock, chickens.
No, Adam, that's in the areas, as we spoke of, under 5 acres.
That's all the town right now. Currently, it's all of town. There's no more than 4 animals per the
In-
zoning bylaw.
Currently.
Currently.
In any zoning district?
Yep.
So you mean when I had animals, I wasn't supposed to have more than 4 pigs?
Correct.
That,
No,
no, but
you were
remember we
agricultural.
said state law overrides
But-
town law in that case.
In that case, yes.
We
You
were
have a lot
agriculture, you
more
were
land,
farm.
and you could be considered a
Same
farm.
with the
Right.
pig farm up on Prospect Street, right? They didn't want 4 animals.
This proposed bylaw would, for one, allow people to have animals, more than 4 animals if they fit. They meet certain requirements. If you're gonna have chickens, you need to have so much land. You're gonna have a goat, 5 goats, you need so much land. You have to have certain setbacks, certain requirements. If you're gonna have more than 4 dogs, that falls into the kennel requirements, which is in zoning. It's not an issue, but if you want 5 cats, you can't currently have 5 cats. This would allow somebody to have 5 cats. Everything would be inspected by animal control, Board of Health. It's just, it's allowing people formally to
How are you
have
gonna
animals.
regulate cats? Dogs are licensed.
Yeah, good luck with that.
They're gonna regulate cats.
Yeah. I think one of the things that frightens me about this, or that concerns me about this, is that, you know, we're kind of turning the corner on trying to become, have our food sources closer and become, you know, more sustainable locally, and are we eliminating the ability for people to, you know, raise chickens or pigs or cows organically and, you know, free range and this kind of a thing. And so thereby, you know, kind of squelching this kind of movement to having your food source locally. You know, that's really, I mean,
Maybe they're trying to avoid somebody with a quarter-acre lot having 10 pigs.
well, yeah, absolutely,
Well, that's where
absolutely,
it's
yes,
good.
yeah,
In the
right,
RA,
right.
RB,
Less than 5
us.
acres, more than 5 acres,
Yep.
you know, that kind of thing.
The intent is to let people have chickens for one, because most places you can't buy
Can't buy
fewer
one.
than 6. You have to buy 6 at a time.
6 at a
most
time,
places.
yes.
And we said
It's
no
true.
roosters. And if you
No
go-
roosters.
less
that
than
was
5.
good,
No
yeah.
roosters less than 5 kids.
And-
We're trying to
yeah.
give people the opportunity to have these animals.
No
right
When it
roosters
now.
for
comes
less
to-
than 5 chickens?
Hmm?
No roosters for less than 5 chickens?
No,
Less
no
than 5
roosters at
acres.
all.
Less than 5 acres.
No roosters, yeah, on less than 5 acres at all. And then on dogs and cats, you know, dogs, there should be some kind of a regulation where when you get those certain dogs bay and howl all night or bark
Yeah,
incessantly,
yeah,
there's got to be some kind of protection for that, because
Yeah,
in the
it says
past
a
it's
public
been like,
nuisance, but I don't think
it's a
that goes
nuisance,
far
but we
enough.
can't do anything.
That would,
It doesn't go
Oh, yeah,
far
we
enough.
can.
When you say a public nuisance, there should be some examples of what a public nuisance maybe.
So it's not a gray area in someone, because those are some of the main things, the
Baying,
barking,
howling,
it's
barking.
There
incessant.
should be a fine implemented for
a
that.
lot of these things will fall, those types of things would fall under the regulations that the Board of Health and the Animal Control would have.
Okay.
The zoning is just basically allowing people to have these animals in certain
Within
situations.
reason.
They do have a barking nuisance thing, not to intervene, but there is something
I'm
for
sure
that. 'Cause
there
I
is.
recall there was
So again, anything over when you're over 5 acres, yeah, you aren't subject to those laws.
Right.
Okay. That makes sense, because we don't want to eliminate, the
Like you
ability
said,
for
we
people to do that,
even, if this is kind of allowing, but also regulating it a little bit, so it protects a few things on the under 5 acres, which is good. But the allowance is good because a lot of people want to have that and probably couldn't in the past. 6 chickens shouldn't be a problem for the most part for anybody, okay? Unless someone who just never cleans it, and even that it would take a while to get bad. But to regulate further, I'm talking about not just because I do it, but farming or anything like that, there's just too much regulation on everything. It's,
Right.
Nobody that's got a farm is going to want to call up the Board of Health or the Board of Appeals and say, oh, I'm getting 7, can I get 7 pigs next week? Because I wouldn't be doing it. But I also know that state law overrides town law, and you're allowed to basically do what you want.
Yeah,
Under
if
regular.
you're farming and it's more than 5 acres, it's
Yeah.
a different category.
Yeah.
This is,
Whole different
this is
category.
intended at the 1 acre lot, the half acre lot that wants to
Yeah.
have 6 chickens or wants to have.
And not negatively impact the
Not
neighbors.
negatively
I mean, in
impact
a
the
town where,
neighbors.
let's be honest, we're on top of each other as it is. It's kind of like some of these things are a necessity because,
The
I
only-
may love chickens, but my neighbor may not, period.
Yeah.
And I think that is kind of like, some of this is built in here to be like a respectful neighbor.
Chickens don't make a lot of noise, it's the roosters that make the noise.
But what did you say about 5 goats?
Somebody
They
wants
could
to
have
have 5
5
goats, they can have 5 goats.
In,
Right now,
in RA?
They have to have a special piece of property in RA to, because most RA lots are pretty small. So
They're
they would-
usually 10,000 square feet.
Yeah, so
B is 20 roughly, and then C is 60, and then
So I
R
don't have
is...
to ever worry about owning any
40 and then
livestock because
60
I've
is
only got
our-
a third of an acre, so I'm good. I don't have to worry about that, even though we were considering chickens. But
So this is just, again, this is meant to formally allow
Sure.
the animals and have some kind of control. Don't want to say control, but look out for the neighbors, make sure they're not a nuisance, make sure you don't have chickens wandering down Route 12. I don't think anybody wants that.
So the
check
one
this out
that I
first.
did have a question on, there's a buffer area of not less than 10 feet, either in its natural state or landscape, maintained between property line and fencing corrals for livestock. Then it says no shelters or structures used in the conjunction shall be within 20 feet.
20 feet.
Of the property line. Why aren't they both 10 feet?
If you're in an RA district and you got it, if you're 10 feet, 10 feet
10-foot
off the property, you
setback
get the
from
other
your
thing
property
20
line.
feet, you could be right next to your house.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I've got a third of it, I can't have anything. I can't have beehives, I can't, can't do any of it. So,
What was the
but I just,
reason-
one's 20 and one's 10. What's the,
What was the reason, why so much regulation on hives? I don't have any, but I know people in Worcester that work that have had them, and they're in small lots in Worcester.
Yeah.
And they got a hive, and they're just infatuated with how much honey
you
they
think
get out of
you
them.
would be encouraging beekeeping
Yeah,
considering
because
the state of
the
bees
bees
and,
and the problems they
that's
have.
what I mean
and-
about the over-regulation. It's just crazy.
Yep.
I know somebody actually sectioned off part of his house and the beehives are inside.
I didn't think you were gonna do it.
Not me.
Anyway, I think, it's all good for clarification, but I think, I don't know.
And the beehives are just we're
I know, we're trying to be respectful and
Kind of
can't
add it
depend
on,
on
just-
everybody to be respectful of their neighbors.
You're gonna have a long night at town meeting, yeah.
But I mean, then you got the people who buy up a piece of land next to a pig farm that's been there for 100 years, and next thing you know, they're complaining about the smell and everything else. Well, then why'd you buy the land,
Or right next to the master bank.
Right, yeah. The noise, whatever it is.
I have one in my backyard.
Free reign.
Been there for 50 years.
You're not being Peter friendly now. We're not allowed to say pets anymore. They have to be companions.
Like the manhole covers?
Does anybody have any other comments on that?
People hole covers?
that this will be on the agenda for zoning
Or
bylaw
anybody
review
calling
committee
that, yeah.
for their
Or manholes, any different.
critique, because they will tear it apart. Most likely at the meeting, they tend to be opinionated group, which is not a bad thing, but
Who's that?
zoning bylaw review committee will be reviewing that, and they'll have their comments
Oh, good, I look forward to.
And will we get to see it before that?
after I,
Yeah, we
After
get to
they
see it
do
after
that.
they do that.
You're welcome to come Monday if you want.
Were you on the committee?
I am.
I'll be there.
All right. We love guests in the audience.
Wait a minute.
All right,
We can make a recommendation here and then be part of the zoning board of appeals.
it's not a recommendation tonight, I'm asking for,
just asking for
Any edits?
feedback, right?
Feedback.
I'm asking you to sponsor the articles for the town meeting. You sponsor it, we'll send them to the Board of Selectmen. The warrant closes on Monday. The Board of Selectmen will vote, send them back to the planning board, reschedule a public hearing. So the formal recommendation will occur in April. I have a public meeting scheduled for March 15th, 15th, to talk about the map, emailing the abutters and the property owners a notice Friday, so they can all come in and give their opinion on if they have any concerns with the map. I'm having another public meeting on March 30th to the town meeting members to talk about all of this. And there'll most likely be a third meeting a week or so before town meeting to talk about the warrant. So there's going to be a lot of
When is the town meeting?
Further
May?
discussion.
a lot of opportunity discussion in May 5th. So there'll be several meetings for the next 2 months and a half. I'll be earning my overtime pay if I got any those night
You
meetings.
won't be getting any overtime.
No, I don't.
You're lucky we pay you.
All right,
But I'll be here many nights next month and a half. But this will be critiqued, and I expect more feedback. So tonight I'm asking for this committee, this board to sponsor the 6 articles and send them to the Board of Selectmen to be placed on the warrant.
a motion to sponsor the 6 articles and place them for Board of Selectmen for the warrant.
I'll make that motion.
Second,
I'll second it.
all those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Thank you.
You better not have missed us.
He has to explain it anyway, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He likes getting questions,
Yeah,
so if you see
he-
the town meeting members out there, just say.
All right, are we all set?
Yeah, next meeting is March 10th.
March 10th. Okay. Motion to adjourn?
The motion to adjourn.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
It is a vote. Thank you very much, people.